Sounds good.
Recording. I'm Luke. This is Tony. Tony, say
Hey,
hi.
I'm Tony. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you already met me.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Great.
Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, so some of these I will know answers to because I know you a little bit, but some I do not actually. So let's get right into it. What's your background prior to getting into software?
So I was a firefighter medic for the city of Colorado Springs, and then before that, I was an Air Force EOD tech. Um, Explosive ordnance disposal is what that translates into.
Bombs in the road.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
hurt
a,
locker stuff. Yeah.
I never saw it.
Oh, it's a good movie. It's based on me.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll have to look that up. Fact check it.
No,
Well,
don't do that.
so what did you do to train up in order to break into software?
Honestly, like I did the whole school thing. I went to school for computer science, and I just like I felt like it was lacking a lot. Like I didn't ever feel like I was being given a challenge. And so with that, I kind of took what I already knew and then I went out and just did my own thing. A lot of Google, before Chat GPT, it was a lot of like, you know, diving into Stack Overflow and just reading countless amounts of books. I mean, like I have probably 100 books behind me that I reference pretty regularly on, for anything I do. And so it's like a thirst for knowledge thing. Like you have to really want to learn it in order for it to stick, right?
Hmm. Hmm. So
But
you actually pull out books like
I
a
know, right? Look, I'm older than I look by a lot, so books are still good for me.
there you go. That's great. So it was a 4-year degree then.
It was, yeah.
Okay. When
Yep.
did you graduate?
I actually haven't graduated yet. I actually switched majors because I was so sick of that school that I went over to get a purely cybersecurity degree now because it makes more sense, right? Like with my current role as a penetration tester, it made more sense to go that route. But I think I had like 3 classes left before I graduate. And then I was like, yeah, whatever, move on.
And so the original degree that you were so close to finishing was just like a general CS degree.
Yeah, computer science with I think there was the concentration in like cybersecurity or something like that, which
But and
I
so
have no idea what that meant. Yeah, yeah,
okay. So you got a full-time job and you're in school now?
yep, that's correct.
Interesting. All right. Well, and so maybe I should ask this first. When did you start this first role you have?
Let's see, I started at Dark Wolf back in February, February 28th. So it's been 4 or 5 months, I think.
Okay. So in school, got the job. Okay. So there's a lot to unpack with getting the job, and that's where the meat of it is probably. So if it's a 4-year degree, we probably don't need to go into how much time you spent learning because people can probably do some math there and figure out approximately. So if you got the job in February, so you were in your senior year, right?
Correct, yeah. Yeah.
How much time did you spend networking, building that sort of stuff outside of school, would you say?
I spent quite a bit of time, like on LinkedIn. That's been really, really crucial for me. I mean, that's how I met you, right? That's that networking portion of it is huge. And I get that it's not for everybody, but even just going out there and looking and seeing like what, what job you want and find a company that has that job and then just kind of figure out what they're all about and try to network with some of the people that work there. You can find out a lot. Like, do you like the company you work with? Find past employees that don't work there anymore and ask them, did you like where you worked? And a lot of times you'll get the truth from the people that don't work there. I
Hmm.
mean, people that do work there aren't going to say anything bad because they're like, oh, it's a spy. But you have, yeah, right. You have people that are like, 1 or 2 jobs out of that job though. They'll be really honest. So spent like a couple hours a day on LinkedIn just trying to figure out, how to get into this crazy industry.
Okay. So were full-time school. Were you working while you were in school?
No, no. Let's see. I got hurt when I was a firefighter, and that's why the career change. And so I was out um, just doing school for like 2 years,
Hmm.
and then on top of that, doing just trying to take as much in as I could, overload myself.
I'm getting that theme.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the place you work now, Dark Wolf, is that something you found via LinkedIn?
Yeah, actually it is. I messaged one of the guys who used to work there, and I was like, "Hey, I think I might be a good fit for this." And he was like, "Okay." And he sent my resume off, and then recruiter contacted me, so I didn't ever technically apply for it. It just
Oh,
kind
wow.
of, yeah, recruiter contacted me, and then um, went from there.
Okay, so was it a Dark Wolf recruiter or was it like a third party?
Dark Wolf recruiter, yeah,
Okay. And so
specific.
tell me what the conversation with the previous employee went like.
I really just, I had messaged him a while back, just kind of saying, "Hey, I'd love to connect." And then, every once in a while, I would just, check on what he's posting or whatever'd come through my feed. And if I saw it, I'd be like, "Oh, that's cool." And then it eventually got to the point where I was like, "Yeah, I really want to work for this company." And then by the time my skill set matched where I could get a job there, they had an opening. And then I just messaged him out of the blue and I was like, "Hey man, like here's my resume. I think I might be a good fit and let me know what you think."
Okay,
And
so
that's
you
really it.
like started talking with him, the conversation kind of goes in spits and spurts as you see content from him that you found worth reaching out about.
Yeah.
And then you're working on your skill set and then you see a job posting from them and you reach out to him and say, hey, this position.
Yeah. Yep. I was like, "Hey, you guys have this penetration tester position open and, here's my resume." I was actually more asking him like, "Do you think I'm, eligible for it?"
Hmm.
And he just sent my resume off and then the next thing I know, I had a recruiter call me and I was like, "Oh, awesome."
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
before we dive into like the specifics of how that whole process went after the recruiter reached out, like maybe tell me, were you getting interviews from other places?
Let's see. Not really. Like I had an internship that I got through TCM Security, and that kind of led up to my job at Dark Wolf. But before that, like I had like one embedded engineer interview, and it was in C, and then I had um, another just cybersecurity analyst interview, and that didn't go anywhere. So I literally only had like these two interviews. They both went horribly wrong. And so, I was just like, okay, I need to step back and focus on just, honing my craft instead of applying to 100 jobs a day.
Uh-huh.
And then once I've gotten a little bit better, then apply out and see what happens. And it worked much better. I mean, if I'm being real, like having somebody watch me, like, I had to do a live coding exercise
Uh-huh.
for one of the interviews, and dude, I bombed it. Like, it was so bad. He was like, reverse an array and see. And I was like, oh, I know how to do that. And then he like opened up the IDE, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't remember how to do it. It's gone. Like,
Brain fart. Yeah.
yeah, like it just was gone. So I was
No,
like,
you're
oh,
in that
whatever.
right. I've been there. And so you said something about like folk own my craft and then go from there. What does that mean? Like you're doing penetration testing and then
Right.
the interview you mentioned C and then what was the other one?
It
Oh,
was just
just
like a cyber analyst.
and
Yeah.
so like when you say that like own my craft, do you mean like you were interviewing outside of your area of expertise, do you think? Or what exactly did you mean by that?
So I started with wanting to be a software engineer and I wanted to do embedded C. And as I kind of progressed through it, I realized that I really just wanted to hack stuff. And that was like where I landed. And so I kind of switched towards, going full time ethical hacker as I started to realize that there were jobs out there for it, right? Like It's not something you just jump into the world and be like, "Oh, I know this exists." And so as I started to notice more and more, I just kinda clicked more with that. So the software engineering interview that I had, that was very early on, before I even started doing, like, penetration testing, and then the cybersecurity analyst one came a couple months after that, and that one was just like, I don't know, the dude ghosted me. That's weird, but,
Mm.
like, just gone. And so that, it wasn't a good fit. Like, I would've hated that job anyways, but, you
Yeah,
know,
there you go.
hindsight, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I know you are very active on LinkedIn because I see your stuff all the time. Like what role did like I get the Reddit feeling from you. I don't do Reddit a whole lot. Do you do Reddit a whole lot?
I actually don't. I don't do
Oh,
it at all. Like, I should. That's where a lot of great intel comes from for our community, but, like, I just don't have time, honestly. Like, I barely have time to do LinkedIn anymore, so it's just
so
kinda.
as you were like learning, like, you started on this one path and then you kind of like realized, oh, penetration testing is this thing and it's out there and it's a job that I, think I would enjoy a lot more. How did you come to learn that? Was that all through LinkedIn then?
Yeah, pretty much exclusively.
Oh, wow.
Like, and through that, I just kinda started to find more and more resources and then just kinda grow my network in that area, and, as you grow your network in that area, you start to get more and more in your feed from it, and, like, all of a sudden, I realized that this is a huge industry, and, you know, I started looking into certs and what I need cert-wise, and so there's a lot of, like, figuring out before I even, like, jumped in. I gotta figure out, do you need a degree? For the most part, no. Do you need certs? Yep, for the most part, you do. I got hired without a degree and without any certs, but, um, that's the exception, not the rule. Um, the reason I like it was cool because my company does a hiring capture the flag, so I don't know if you're familiar with things like, Hack the Box or, like, Try Hack Me. So
Mhm.
they're online platforms for to teach you hacking, and they're all like you have a VM, and then you VPN into that network, and then you attack these machines, and when you get to the root user or whatever, then you get a flag, and then you put that flag into a thing, and it says, "Okay, yeah, you did it." Um, that's a very watered down version of it, but, so my company did that, and, like, you had 5 days and or I had 5 days. I think it's 4 days now, but there was 20 flags total on 5 different machines, and so, like, it really was, like, just for 5 days, that's all I did. Like, it was crazy. I had so much fun though, but, like, the results of that had a I think they had a pretty heavy weight on, you know, on hiring me, and then it just was a good time, honestly. Like, it was fun.
And so that was pre-job, right?
Yeah, that was actually part of the interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you capture any flags?
Yeah, yeah, I think I got 4 of them,
Oh
4 or
shit.
5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that can get way more than that, but, like, I was impressed by myself. I was like, "Yeah, look at me
Yeah.
go." Yeah,
I wouldn't even be able to VPN in. I'd be like, I need help. Well, cool, man. So you mentioned before you had an internship. I think TCM something.
Yeah, TCM.
And how'd you get that?
That actually was also through LinkedIn. So the CEO, I know the CEO pretty well now, but way back when, he posted something on LinkedIn about looking for, like, a drone, and I'm a certified drone pilot, so, I kinda looked at what people were telling him to get, and I was like, "Don't do any of that." Like, this is for commercial use. What they're doing is telling you what to do for, like, personal use. They're 2 completely different things. So I reached out to him and I was like, "Hey, man, like, here's all I know about commercial drone work and, like, what you'd need." And then I just was like, I gave it to him. And I was like, "All right, cool." And then after that, like, we just kinda kept talking, and then we built up this friendship, and then pretty soon he was like, "You wanna come intern with us?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And so then I hopped into that, learned a lot, and then, I was in that for 4 months, and then I switched over to the Dark Wolf after that.
So it's kind of like you had the internship. What was it going to end, or did you have to like end it to then go work for Dark Wolf?
So I actually ended it. I didn't really have an end date set up with TCM, so as I was working through it, they knew I was trying to get a job too, so they were just kind of like, as I was going through, they were expecting me to drop off eventually. And so, once I got to that point, they were like, "All right, you're good to go."
Okay. And so, you said the recruiter reached out to you for, the position you have now, but then you
Mhm.
also said like there was this, hack reactor or
The
hackathon thing.
cack the box, capture the flag. Jeez, hack the box style, capture the flag. There we go. Yeah.
Okay. So what was the like? Did they reach out to you and tell you like, hey, we have this event coming up. Would you like to sign up? Or what was the thing there?
Oh, so they emailed me and they were like, "Hey, we really want you to take the hiring CTF." And then I said, "Okay, cool." And they were like, so it's really cool how they do it, but it's spawned out in AWS buckets or instances, and so you can really spin it up for a bunch of people, and they can all have their own individual like setups, and then they just VPN into it. So I pretty much was like, I'll start on Friday and end it on Tuesday, so I could work through the weekend. And then they just, they were like, okay. And then I got emailed some credentials. I got emailed an OpenVPN like config file, and then they were like, go.
Okay. So it was kind of like they can start it ad hoc for people, and
Yeah,
the recruiter reached out to you and said, we want you to do this thing, and so then you started it.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Okay. Um, Man, I had other questions that spun off of there, but now I think I lost them. Uh, Interview process. Okay, so what was the interview process like after you did the capture the flag?
So the interview process was more of like a figuring out kind of where I was baseline. They asked some really good technical questions, and then they really just wanted to know what I was passionate about. And that like having somebody ask me that in an interview was awesome because all of a sudden I realized like, oh, these people actually like they care about what I want to do, and they actually care enough to listen during an interview, which I thought was fantastic. Like I've never had that in an interview. But I get the technical side, asked all these different questions, um, and there were a couple questions I didn't know the answer to, right? Like, and everybody panics. They're like, "Well, what do I do in an interview if I don't know?" And like, I've always been of the mindset like I'm not going to try to BS somebody because that's even worse, right? So I was like, I don't know. He was like, how much do you know about DevOps was the question, and I was like, not much. Like I know GitHub and GitLab are a part of it to a degree, but like that's it. And he was like, okay. And then he was like, I was gonna ask you about how like what your cloud knowledge is, and he's like, but based on your DevOps answer, I'm not even gonna ask you those. I was like, that's fair. I appreciate it. And then I was like, I'm love like I'm passionate about hardware and drones, and like I don't know. Apparently, saying drones was like the magic word because they like lit up and they were like, oh, okay. And it turns out like they have a huge like we have a giant like pen testing arena for drones specifically.
Hmm.
So I am a drone pen tester, and that's literally all I do at this. Um, so I do like it's a bunch of different hackings all in one, like hardware, mobile device, RF, like regular network, Wi-Fi. It's crazy. It's like so many different things, and they're always different, right? Because these vendors come up with these different things all the time,
Yeah.
and so it's fun. Like it keeps me interested. Like I've never been
You've
so
never been what?
bored.
Oh, but yeah. No, I feel like that's the place to be, right? Like when you find the job that doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
it's hard to find.
it is. So going back, I remember what my question I thought of earlier and I lost it. you said like, hey, I reached out to this guy who used to work for these people, and I started this relationship, and we talked every once in a while. And you reached out to him and you said, hey, do you think I would be a fit for this position?
Mhm.
How did you get to a place where you could feel like I'm ready for that position? Like, was it project based, or like you just spent enough time like learning about things? Like, how does your resume have enough on it, and then you have that feeling about your abilities that you're like, I'm ready for that.
I would say that like, and as far as software too, like kind of combining these two, it's like when you're able to complete a project on your own for the first time and all of a sudden it works the way you want it to, and you realize like I did it, like that kind of a feeling. I would say that like I had more of like an aha moment like that where I was like working through during my internship, I was helping do an external pen test and I started finding things. And like as I started to find these vulnerabilities, I started to realize like, oh, I actually do know, I know what I'm doing. And then I started to build up on that and like just kept realizing, I can do it. And then I just was like, okay, full steam ahead. Like got this much. I can figure the rest out. Let's go. And then that's it. I was gone.
Hmm. And so, kind of related to that question, do you have projects? Like what? I don't know your world at all. So,
Man.
what do you do projects for penetration
Yeah.
testing?
Yeah, I do. I have a lot of, man, too many. So my my baby right now, my project that I've had forever is I have a Discord server that I host, and it's for anybody that wants to get into cybersecurity because I got super frustrated when I first started that I couldn't get anybody to talk to me. Like, I'd ask people like, "Hey, is there anywhere I can go to learn this? Like, where should I go?" And I just get like ghosted or generic answer, whatever. Nobody would give me the time of day. And so I was like, you know what, screw this. I'll start my own Discord server and then put it out there and then just collect people who know stuff and ask them questions. That was the basis behind it. And now it's like grown into this massive, like I have 1,000 people in there now. And so it's pretty big. But I love it because it's just a free exchange of ideas. Like you don't know what you need to learn something, you can go in there and ask, and most people like there will be somebody in there that knows. So that's my main project, and then I have a server that I host a lot of stuff on internally that I practice on, um, and that's crucial too in our world. Like I would equate that to like having a server is like a long-term project, coding project for a developer. Like it's something you can put on a resume. It's something you can show like that you have an ability, one, to set up a server. Two, you have the ability to set up a bunch of hypervisors or a hypervisor with a bunch of VMs on it. And then on top of that, run a bunch of different things on it. And so, it's a fun project, but it definitely is time consuming. And I bought all these servers off eBay too, so I had to repair all these servers. And so it was a crazy learning experience, but it was worth it. Like it was well worth it.
So
I learned a
how do
lot.
people go look at like you put it on your resume like I built a server, like can people go look at it?
Um, they can't look at mine, but you could you could put it out there. Like I have a GitLab that I host on mine, a private GitLab that I keep my tools and stuff like that on, that I won't let anybody see. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's yeah. But anyway, um, what I did was I just put it in my resume and then I listed what I had on there. Like, I'm running Proxmox with 5 different VMs, and each VM is like this one's a wiki VM, this one's like a blog VM, this one is a GitLab VM, just kind of, and then I have like a couple vulnerable machines on there, and you know, subnetted them out, and they're in different spots. So I think that's just explaining that, and then posting a picture of it on LinkedIn doesn't hurt either. Just the server, like a picture of the physical server. I've
Hmm.
I've done that, and that people like to they like to see that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So going back to the interview process, like, so how many interviews were there after the capture the flag thing?
So I only had one.
Okay.
And then they were really quick on sending me an offer after that. It was like I interviewed, and then 2 days later, they sent me a conditional. I did my background check, had to get my clearance re-spun up, and then after that, it was like a week, and then after that, they sent me a final offer, and then after that, I was like 2 weeks till I start. So I think I started a little under a month, like the 1 month mark from when I actually got reached out to by the recruiter.
Okay.
So it was a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you talked about like, I told them when I didn't know the answer to something, and then also, the like hitting on the drone thing, just like that's what they were looking for, and that's what you're passionate about. So it kind of just lined up there.
Mhm.
But do you think there was anything else that you did well in the interview that kind of helped you get the job?
I mean, the, no hindsight, like I never feel good about interviews. Like that's just like I don't know. That's how I am. Like I'll interview and then I'll walk out of the interview and my wife's like, "How did you do?" And I'm like, "Not getting that job." Like every time, right? And so, but like looking back on it, I think I clicked with the interviewers pretty well. Like I know them now and I get along great with both of them now. But walking into that interview, I didn't know them, but I just kind of established like joke around a little bit, but not too much, and then just kind of like feel it out to like I'm gonna have fun doing this, and this is just who I am. Like this was one of the only interviews that I didn't try to like church myself up and like make myself like I'm pretty sure I was interviewing in like this, like a hat and a t-shirt, and like and before that I had worn at least like a collar with a tie, and I'm like sitting in front of a computer, I feel stupid, and then I'm like, yeah, I didn't get the job because of that. So I was
Because
like,
that guy.
screw it. I'm just gonna do whatever I want. Like I'm gonna be who I am, and if they like me, then they'll hire me. So
Yeah.
apparently they liked me enough to hire me. But yeah, it was just like it was a good conversation. Like we were just talking about different things, and they asked me what I like to do, like project wise. Broke down my projects. I broke down like I use rubber duckies a lot, which are the little USB flash drives that, well, they look like it, but they actually are, the computer thinks they're HID devices like a keyboard. And so you can inject keystrokes in and like you can open up a command prompt and like run a bunch of stuff through them just plugging it in. So like those are super fun to program. It's just like, it's essentially PowerShell in a different language, but it's super fun. And so you talked about that, and that, it clicked because we were both like, you know, joking about the things we've done with them, and like changing people's backgrounds when they plug it in and stuff like that. Nothing malicious, but yeah,
You are not
yeah,
allowed near my computer.
that's that's fair. Fair. Just don't plug in anything that you don't know where it came from. That's the key.
Yeah, no, wise advice. Um, so with the job description for like, hey, you sent it to this guy and like you're interviewing for it, did it mention drones?
Uh, I think it briefly did, but I didn't even read that, honestly. I
Okay.
read like the first paragraph of the job description because they're all like 2 pages long. And so I read like the first couple and I was like, yep, I meet those. And I was like, that's good enough. And so after that, I just stopped reading it because I don't want to psych myself out and be like, I don't know all these things because
Mhm.
there's a lot of things I don't know. And the things I did know, though, I was like, yep, I know those well enough to be able to articulate that in an interview. And so from there, that's
Well, that's sort of where I was going is how much of the, skills listed on the job listing do you think you fit?
without like looking at it, I would say I probably hit like 60% of them, maybe less, maybe like 55. And so it wasn't a lot. It wasn't like a huge, like I wasn't like 90% or 100% there. I don't think anybody's 100%, but I wasn't like 90. However, it's like you were saying, like if you find your passion in that, with that company, then, you'll grow quickly.
Hmm.
And I think they saw that too. And I can definitely tell you I've grown very quickly in the past 4 months. Um, and that's like anything. Like when you start working as a software dev and you like jump into your first job, then you get really good really fast at whatever language you're, whatever you're learning because it's like a sink or swim kind of thing. But then, I have a mentor at Dark Wolf. He's awesome. Helps me out with, things I don't know. So they kind of they invest in the employee and not necessarily in like what they bring, but what they feel like I can bring through training and stuff like that. And, it's been great. Like I've gotten a bunch of certs while I'm there. Um, and just, just constantly learning new things.
Hmm. This is it doesn't matter at all, but I'm just curious: is it local or is it remote?
So I'm actually hybrid. I work from home sometimes, and then there is an office here in Colorado Springs that I have to go. I go in to actual work on the drones. And then when I'm doing things like open source intelligence, or I pulled some firmware off of a drone and I'm going to reverse it, I'll just do that from home. Um, Mostly because my desktop is screaming fast versus my laptop, which isn't as fast, and so like doing certain things in binaries or like messing with source code like that. I like to have the speed just because it gets memory hungry. But um, yeah, it's half and half pretty much.
Okay.
Most of our guys though they're remote, fully remote.
Okay. Yeah, just I didn't know, and I thought I'd ask. Um, so I think we've gone through all the questions I had, and we're at time. Do you like out of your experience? Is there anything you feel like we didn't hit on? Things that stood out to you while you were networking on LinkedIn, or conversations you had that like were kind of those aha moments. Anything like that?
Yeah, one thing that I noticed a lot on LinkedIn was that there's like a lot of, call it gatekeeping, I guess, where people will tell you like, oh, if you want to be a penetration tester, you have to be like a network admin, and then you got to work help desk, or you have to do all like they say like you have to do it by these steps or you won't succeed. And that kind of like fueled my fire to say like, no, I'm going to do it how I want to do it. And it worked. But like I tell people all the time too, don't emulate me because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Like you have to find out what works specifically for you as an individual and what your strengths are, and then go from there. Like you have to be able to look at yourself and say like, I'm good at this, I'm not good at this, and work on those things, and then market the good things, fix the bad things. And so that's really like the biggest thing that I noticed on LinkedIn was it can be super demoralizing, like soul crushing. And you have to get past all that and just like that's why I don't post anything like that because I hate it. I'm just like post either funny stuff or just things that I think are cool because I'm trying to give people a break from all the other BS that floats around out there. Um, but yeah, no, that's really the only advice that I'd have that I've figured out through my my journey to do this was that yeah, you don't have to do it somebody else's way. You do it your way, and that works for software too. Like yeah, you do need to know the language and you need to know the syntax, but like you don't have to go to college as long as you go through a boot camp or you know what you're doing. Like you be self-taught. As long as you know what you're doing, you're gonna get hired. Like eventually. It's just jobs out there right now are tough. They're hard to find in all the tech fields. So they're
But you
definitely.
found one.
I did. I found one.
You know,
Found one and snatched it up.
after the downturn, right? So November 2022 is when all the tech layoffs, like Twitter and Meta, had their big layoffs in November, and that's why I want to interview people after that time period because it's like, okay, definitely the layoffs had
Yeah.
full swing by November, and you got a job after that.
Yeah. February. So it was 3 months after that. And I think Amazon was laying off a bunch of their folks at the same time I was getting hired. Like I think it was around January, February that they laid off like 10,000 people or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
which sucks because like now all my packages show up at 3 days, and I'm like, I pay for 2 day shipping.
My package.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, like,
Hire
ask
them
all these people back. Yeah, it's
back.
bullshit.
Oh my God, that's too good. All right, man. Well, we'll stop recording here, and I appreciate you, Tony, for sharing
Yeah,
your.
man. Yeah, no, happy to do it.
All right,
All right, man.
it stop here.